This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are we doing on this Thursday? It's the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Joe Gaither6 or on the Bama Central YouTube channel. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find, download, rate, and review the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We're going to have a lot of topics to run through on a Thursday, so we want to get right into them. Apologize we missed the show yesterday because we were up in Birmingham for the Regions Tradition. We'll talk about what we heard from head coach Kalen DeBoer. We'll talk about Deshaun Jones making his commitment official after teasing the public just a little bit. We'll talk about Alabama softball losing yesterday to LSU in absolutely brutal fashion, 14 innings, losing and being eliminated after just one game in the SEC tournament. I got a couple NIL topics to touch on as Brian Kelly and Boise State coach Spencer Danielson both made some interesting comments over the last couple of days. We'll talk about the NCAA. The NCAA has just approved a waiver allowing for unlimited official visits for basketball, men's and women's basketball. And on the basketball note, the Crimson Tide gets locked in on two different events, one with Illinois, and secondly, and more interestingly, the NIL-driven event, the Players Festival out there in Las Vegas. So that's going to be the rundown. That's going to be the topics of the day. You can jump in and join us on the comment section at Joe Gaither6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. If you'd like to send a comment, question, query, or complaint, you can find me right there. What do I want to start with? Okay, I want to start with softball because we don't usually talk softball on the program, but I want to start with softball. Alabama softball opens the SEC tournament down there in Auburn against LSU yesterday morning, and it went well into the afternoon because, two factors. Alabama, it's tied 2-2 and goes all the way into the 14th inning. Alabama loses 3-2. But goodness gracious, I think this was just a bit of a microcosm of what the girls and what the program have been dealing with throughout the entire season. And specifically in the SEC season. Alabama gets out to a 2-0 start yesterday, right in the first inning. And that's great. I mean, you felt great about that. Wow, Alabama gets on the board early. You're 2-0. This is going to be a new day. The season it's a new season. We heard Coach Patrick Murphy talking about a fresh slate on Tuesday, and okay, it looked that way. You get out to a 2-0 start. Perfect. And then everything sort of settles back into form, back into really what's been the story of the season, not being able to pass the bats down, not being able to string together consecutive hits. Yes, Alabama got 8 hits in the ball game, 8 hits across the 14 innings. Sidney Berzon pitched 208 pitches. 208 pitches across the 14 innings, only allowing the 8 hits and the 2 runs right off the bat in the first inning. All right, so it's not really that bad, but goodness gracious, you put a lot of pressure on the Alabama pitching staff. Caleb Beaver and Jocelyn Brisky handling the load yesterday for Alabama, and really Beaver was doing fairly well through the game. And then the 6th inning happens. LSU loads the bases. You get a walk. You get a hit by a pitch. And boom, you have a tie ball game. You think, Caleb Beaver, you don't need to load the bases. You don't need to walk batters. And yes, that's true. You don't need to hit batters. Yes, that's true. But goodness gracious, how can you expect any pitcher to go out and perform well when they feel like, or when the standard is perfection or lose? Be perfect or lose. Don't give up runs. And really, look, you have a bad inning in the 6th inning and the opposing team puts up a 2 spot. I mean, that's not really a bad inning. That's a joke. And so you have one little error, one little kind of dip in performance from the pitcher, from the circle, and the game is tied, and you still cannot support your pitchers with any runs. It took to the 14th inning till LSU scored their run. But goodness gracious, they might have played 20, 30, I don't know. They could have played all daggum day. And Alabama's bats just weren't really able to string together consecutive hits. it makes me wonder. I mean, look, Patrick Murphy's not going to get fired this season. They're going to go to the postseason. You're going to be in the NCAA tournament. We talked about it, on Tuesday, that the girls were on the last line, the last place to host a regional. They were on the 16 line. The top 16 seeds host a regional. They were on the 16 line. Now you've got a bit of gray area. I would expect Alabama to not host a regional next weekend when the NCAA tournament gets started. And that'll be the first time, goodness gracious, that Alabama hasn't hosted a regional in ages and ages, right? When was the last time they didn't host a regional? Let's see, regional appearance. You've gone back, obviously not in 2020. You played in the regional round every single year since 2005. Except for 2020, obviously, with the COVID season. I believe that Alabama's hosted a regional in most of those times. And so, okay, you've definitely had a dip in the program. At least on the hitting side, and you've been dealing with this for the last 4, 5, 6 years. Appreciate, as I snap back over to the comments, appreciate my man James Ludeman chiming in. What's going on, James? You can be like James and join us on Facebook just like he is. Look, you've got a dip in the program from the hitting standpoint. I'm not sitting here calling for Patrick Murphy's job, but depending on what happens next week at the regionals and wherever regional they get sent to, you're going to have pressure on this Alabama team to perform well. And if you don't perform well and you go out and you win one game and you lose, you go 1-2 in the regional, it's a double elimination round. I think 4 teams each go to every regional. You go 1-2 and get bounced on out, the noise around the program is just going to get loud. It's just going to get louder and louder and louder. And look, I absolutely believe that Patrick Murphy's putting everything into this job and doing everything that he can to inspire the team and doing everything they can to, okay, let's have good pitch selection. Let's not swing it junk. Let's pass the bat down. Let's, focus on whatever the fundamentals of hitting is. I am not a softball expert. And I played baseball as a kid. My forte was in the field, not at the plate. Let's just say that. So I'm not going to sit here and talk from a perspective of knowledge, from a perspective of expertise. But you go through the lineup 6 times yesterday down there in Auburn, and look, these girls are not playing college softball because they stink. You go through the lineup 6 times, and you cannot really get on top of Sydney Berzon. Just a frustrating feeling watching the team you get a leadoff double and boom, you get 3 outs in a row. You just don't really have enough consistency in the lineup to be competitive at a high level right now with the rest of college softball. Now, this might just be a 1-year dip, but let's just think about it. The last couple of seasons, yes, you had Montana Felts to overcome some of those errors, and she was as close to a perfect pitcher as you can get. But even still, you didn't have enough run support to win a national championship with Montana Felts, arguably the best pitcher in Alabama history. So you have a tough result yesterday, and tough results happen. And I'm not going to sit here and say, blow up the program, fire Patrick Murphy, anything over a tough result. You're still going to the postseason. The program is still, it's a top 25 program in the country. Absolutely. And so it's still a destination program. It's the second largest on-campus softball facility after Oklahoma redid their stadium. So it's a great program. Everything is still fine, but the frustration is absolutely warranted. And the frustration is absolutely present over the program. I don't know what it's going to take to reinvigorate the bats, whether it's a recruiting issue, whether it's an approach issue. You hired a new hitting coach. You promoted a hitting coach off your volunteer staff into full-time staff before this season. And you went out and brought in Caleb Rowe to be your first base coach / second assistant coach. So you've got a lot of the same voices around the program that's been there for the last a handful of years. I just don't know what it's going to take to reinvigorate the program, especially from an offensive standpoint. The pitching has been really, really good really throughout the last decade under Patrick Murphy. I mean, you can go back to Jackie Traina. You go back like the pitching at Alabama has always been strong. But for some reason, over the last 4 or so seasons, the batting really has taken a severe dip. And I don't know if it's an issue at the plate or if it's, an issue as far as approach and coaching, or if it's a skill issue. And then you just got to go out and recruit better, more consistent hitters. But nonetheless, Alabama was eliminated yesterday in the SEC tournament in 14 innings. The ladies played a marathon, and so you give them a lot of credit for hanging in there and battling for the 14 innings. I mean, goodness gracious, I know that I would be frustrated if our team scored 2 runs in the first inning and then goes 13 scoreless innings after that. Goodness gracious, I was talking to some friends about if I were a pitcher on this team, I don't know that I would be able to be a good teammate supporting the team. And maybe that's why I never really made it as an average athlete. It's just so much pressure on the pitching staff to be perfect. And so we'll see if the bats can get unlocked next week in the regional round, because they will be qualified for a regional. I don't think that they're going to host anymore. And if they do host, I wonder if that's going to be some committee bias based on, Alabama's history being a historically good program. But just a big weekend next weekend as the girls try to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. All right, so that's it for softball. Let's talk about why I missed the show yesterday and what we did. We were over at the Greystone Country Club watching the Regions Tradition. We heard from Coach Kalen DeBoer. We heard from Kirby Smart, Hugh Freeze, Nick Saban. I didn't stick around for a Charles Barkley appearance. I don't know if he made it down to the media area. We did hear from country music singer Riley Green a little bit. That was nice. But Tommy Tuberville stiffed us. I guess the former coach, senator, was afraid of spending 5 minutes with a bunch of sports reporters. I'm sure we were all going to ask him very, very tough, politically driven questions. Not. I mean, it would have been a cakewalk, but he still stiffed the media on his scheduled appearance. It wasn't just a volunteer. I mean, obviously it is volunteer, but it was a scheduled appearance by the event that he skipped out on. Oh, man. But we heard from Kalen DeBoer, and that's what I want to talk about. Kalen DeBoer said a couple of different things. Look, it was only 4 or 5 minutes, and if you missed it, you can find it on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. He said 3 things that I want to get into. First, he talked about Jalen Milroe, and he talked about his advancement as far as processing the field and his really the steps forward that he took during spring practice as far as reading a defense after the snap. And so, look, I know a lot of you, and a couple of times during the spring shows, I wondered if Jalen Milroe was going to be a good fit for this Kalen DeBoer system. But I think that everything is going right on track. I think everything is going swimmingly as far as the quarterback learning the system, getting comfortable in the system, and really improving himself as a player at the same time. Jalen Milroe completed 34 passes of 20 or more yards down the field last year. That was 3rd in the nation, behind Michael Penix of Washington. That was 3rd in the nation. And so he's obviously, that was one of his biggest strengths, was hitting the deep ball down the field. A lot of you worried and wondered about, can he consistently hit the right target underneath the medium to underneath throws? Is he as capable of doing that? Now, different times he showed the ability to do that, and I think that A-Day was a joke. A-Day was an absolute joke. Everything was scripted, and I think that you saw Jalen Milroe suffer from a couple of different drops from his wide receivers, but A-Day was not anything to go off of. What I think we heard from Kalen DeBoer yesterday was that he is confident in Jalen Milroe's progression. You're sitting here May 9th, and the guys are going to re-report back to Alabama. I guess May 28th, May 30th, I think, is the start of Summer 1. So they'll re-report then. But for a couple of months progress, for February, March, April, right? That's the 3 months progress that Jalen Milroe got with Kalen DeBoer. I think that he sounded very confident in him. And as you go into the season this year, I know 2-3 days ago we did Heisman Trophy odds, and Jalen Milroe was plus 1,000 and was 4th, 5th down the list. I think that if you wanted to spend your money that way, if you are a gambler and you wanted to wager your money that way, I don't really think that that's a foolish bet. He's the most he got the most votes for any returning player, right? Michael Penix is gone. All the other Heisman candidates are gone. Caleb Williams, the winner, is gone. So he's got the most returning votes. If I'm saying that clearly enough. I think he's going to have a really strong year. And I think you're going to see a true number one emerge in Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard showed me a physical skill set, very good at catching the ball at the high point during A-Day. And I think that having a true number one, look, let's be honest. You all felt one way or the other about Jermaine Burton, and you all felt one way or another about Isaiah Bond last year. But objectively speaking, Jermaine Burton wasn't really a wide receiver one type candidate, SEC wide receiver one. He wasn't. He was a 1B, maybe a 2, and Isaiah Bond, a nice little speedster, and definitely had the speed. But as far as down out wide receiver, didn't really have that last season. Let's be honest with ourselves. I think Jalen Milroe could have improved with his progression and with his ability to read the defenses last year. But I think it was a little column A, a little column B, with the wide receivers not being as consistent as they needed to be, and Jalen Milroe not reading the field as well as he needed to as well. I think Jeremy Bernard, his ability and his consistency will basically go hand in hand with Jalen Milroe's improvement, and the two of them together are really going to unlock this offense, and you'll see guys like Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice and Ryan Williams be some of the guys that really become beneficiaries, because Jeremy Bernard is going to be one of those guys that, okay, we got to really game plan for this guy. You didn't have to game plan for Isaiah Bond. You didn't have to game plan for Jermaine Burton. They were just dudes last season. And, quality dudes. And obviously you love the Gravedigger play. Thank you, Isaiah Bond, for making that catch down there in the corner of the end zone. But they're just dudes. And I think that you will see an improved receiving core, and that will result in even better numbers for Jalen Milroe. The second thing that Kalen DeBoer talked about was the transfer portal and James Brockermeyer and really Parker Brailsford. All three kind of wrapped into two different answers. We asked him about the transfer portal. He said, really what we've been telling you, Alabama has limited spots. Alabama has limited space to fill. You only had a couple of spaces to fill when the spring transfer portal window closed. I think you're at 2 spaces, maybe 1 or 2 spaces remaining. I guess my math has not been that good, but I think you're at 2 spaces remaining, and that makes it complicated. You don't just go out there and fill those 2 spaces with any old Jimmy or any Billy or anybody, right? You got to get the right fits, and I think you're seeing the patience really drive Alabama. I think a lot of people are like, oh, why hasn't Alabama gone after this guy? Why hasn't Alabama gone after that guy? You've seen a lot of corners that they, didn't land. It did land a corner yesterday, mid-evening. Deshaun Jones did officially announce his commitment to Alabama. I guess he silently committed on Sunday, and then he put out a very strange tweet on Wednesday morning. The recruitment is still open, but later on in the day, on Wednesday, he announced his decision that he is coming to Alabama. So you fill the cornerback spot. You've got 2 spots remaining. Coach DeBoer basically says, because of the limited spots, we've had to be very choosy, is the word that he used. So look, you can't just go take, oh, this guy's awesome, let's take him. You got to understand fit and how they're going to fit in on the field in Bryant-Denny Stadium, but fit in the locker room as well. And so I think that has been the root cause of why the transfer portal acquisitions haven't been coming as quickly as maybe some of the Alabama fans may have liked. I think you are going to get a commitment before the day is over. I think you're going to see King Mack, the safety from Penn State, probably go ahead and announce his commitment to Alabama. I do think you're going to wrap up the recruiting by the end of the weekend. I think you'll see King Mack and Geno Vandermark. We've talked about Geno Vandermark, the offensive lineman. I think you'll see both of those guys commit to Alabama before the end of the weekend. And whether you're able to get Khalil Jacobs, the South Alabama linebacker, into the system or not, I think it's going to be up to fudging a little bit of the numbers, and let's see what we can do with these scholarship numbers. Does do one of the in-state guys end up going on some sort of an NIL-based scholarship or not? But Kalen DeBoer basically saying we've got we're choosy in the portal right now. He also complimented James Brockermeyer for the work that he did, but said, I think we'll be just fine, to close his answer. He said, all this hooey, yada, 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 good stuff. Thanks, James, for your time, for your effort. And ended it with, I think we'll be just fine. The next follow-up was, well, what about Parker Brailsford's return? And he basically stayed consistent. His answer about Parker Brailsford has always been, he's going to be with the team in June. He's going to be with the team in June. He's going to return to the team in June when everybody reports. Well, reporter asked him yesterday, okay, well, are you going to be just fine? Does that mean that Parker Brailsford is still on track to return to the team in June? And he says, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, no doubt. It was like 4 words, but it was all affirming that he is going to be with the team in June. Goes into really the importance. Look, if he's not with the team in June, goodness gracious, I think you're in trouble, especially in trouble in the middle. Now, you get Gino Vandermark, you're in less trouble. But you get Gino Vandermark and Parker Brailsford into the system, and then you continue to make Joe Ionata learn to snap the football. You continue to make William Sanders snap the football just in their spare time. I don't know that you fully transition them to center, but you get them comfortable with that. Then you have a center room and an interior offensive line that looks very, very strong, and an interior offensive line where I will be more confident. You asked me today on May 9th, I am not very confident in the center position. I love what you got in right and left guard and Jaden Robertson, Tyler Booker. Look, those two guys are man movers. Those two guys are mammoth of players. And I think that both those guys are exactly what you want at the guard position. But it's that middle guy, the center, that is the linchpin that holds it all together. And so right now on May 9th, I'm, still in an apprehensive stage about the center position. I think that you're going to have to get Gino Vandermark committed to the team, into the system. And I think look, at least for me, I'm going to have to see Parker Brailsford in a set of Alabama pads, in an Alabama uniform, whether in a practice uniform. Put that crimson on, put your number on there. I'm going to have to see it. Look, I'm not sitting here calling Coach DeBoer. I'm not saying that he's lying to us, but I just don't know because, mental health is strange for everyone. And June is a month away. We'll see if things change by June. Hopefully, ideally, Coach DeBoer is exactly right. He said with the transfer portal, I think that we will have a better roster when it's all said and done. I think that if you get King Mack and you get Gino Vandermark, you've already got Deshaun Jones. You pulled Caden Proctor back from the portal. You got Cameron Howard. You got the Lou Groza Award winner and Graham Nicholson. So you've got a bunch of you have added to your roster in the transfer portal. I just see still the hole at center, and it makes me highly concerned based on what Alabama did last season. So that's really everything that Kalen DeBoer said yesterday at the Regents Tradition. He spent about 5 minutes with the media. He comedically said, this golf is not going to go very well today. He said, the fans are not going to be able to accuse me of playing too much golf when they see my game today. They put on a little, just a short clip. You can look it up on the Regents Tradition's website or on their social medias of all 4 coaches, Hugh Freeze, Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart, and Nick Saban driving, and there were some interesting swings. Look, Coach DeBoer, he says, I don't play golf very much, and I'm not good at this game. His driver swing wasn't really that bad. Out of the 4, Kirby Smart, sorry guys, but Kirby Smart had the best swing, had the purest swing. I think Nick Saban was right there, number 2. Obviously, Nick Saban's been working on his sling for the last 3 or 4 months, and look, driving is not all of golf. I'm sure that Coach Saban had himself a nice little day. But just on the tee, put Kirby Smart number 1, Nick Saban number 2, Kalen DeBoer number 3. And this has nothing to do with you being the Auburn coach, Hugh Freeze, but your driver swing is atrocious. The way that you swung your driver was not the way that you swung your irons and wedges right there on the driving range getting warmed up. it was absolutely ugly. And now, saying that and seeing what happened after the ball was struck, it's amazing. Great job. Hugh Freeze, the contact that you were able to generate, that you were able to get, is absolutely amazing with that swing. It was one of the messiest swings I have seen. It looked very Cameron Wolf-esque, but it wasn't exactly on the Cameron Wolf plane. Cameron Wolf brings his driver basically straight up behind his head and kind of gives it a little twirl before he brings it on down. Hugh Freeze had the initial was all right, straight back, and okay, that doesn't look bad. That looks normal, straight back, and then he cocked it up like a baseball, like he cocked his club up like he's holding a baseball bat, and then bam, came on through. And so very impressive for him to get the kind of contact that he was able to get with the unorganized swing that he had. So that was our time at the Regents Tradition. Look, Nick Saban didn't really say a whole lot. We only had him for about 2 minutes, and Kirby Smart said even less. We had him for 2 minutes as well. You can see all of those interviews on the BamaCentral YouTube channel right now. It'll take you about 12 minutes to listen to Kirby, to listen to Hugh Freeze, Nick Saban, and Kalen DeBoer. All of them were pretty short and sweet, but it is a lot of fun to be there. And besides it being a senior, one of the senior majors, the champions major, it also is beneficial to Children's of Alabama. So a great event to be out there, seeing a lot of celebrities. Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelik were doing their radio show out there. Lots of great stuff. I mean, Tommy Tuberville was there. But he did skip out on his media appearance. Condoleezza Rice was there. She was not scheduled to speak with the media, but it was a great event to see kind of a lot of the who's who in this state playing a little golf and relaxing just a little bit as the summer gets rolling. All right, so that's Kalen DeBoer. That's Alabama softball. That's the Regents Tradition. Look, we hit on Deshaun Jones just a minute, but let's close that loop. Deshaun Jones, the cornerback from Wake Forest, officially announced his commitment to the Crimson Tide yesterday. Obviously, there was a little bit of space between the Sunday and the Wednesday commitment, and there was a very strange tweet from Deshaun Jones on Wednesday morning saying my recruitment is still open. I don't know if that was his last-ditch effort to see if anybody wanted to come over the top of Alabama. I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. By what, 5:30, 6 o'clock, Deshaun Jones announced his commitment to Alabama and basically completed the cornerback room. Deshaun Jones, he got 2 years of eligibility left. The former Wake Forest cornerback had 3 interceptions last year. And look, ACC is good. You're playing Power 5 football. He brings exactly what you want to this Alabama roster right now: experience, physicality. And I think that you've got a guy who's not good. Look, every time that I got to put on his tape this week, he was off of his receiver. He was back. The receiver never beat him deep. That's the point. The receiver never got behind him to beat him deep. Now, the receivers, a couple of different times, you have an in-breaking or an out-breaking route, or you sit down on a hitch. Okay, you hit the hitch, you get into your break, and bam, the receiver did get open on Deshaun Jones. But Deshaun Jones, what I did like about him was very physical corner. Every time, okay, the receiver out-breaking route, he hit his break and got the reception. Well, bam, Deshaun Jones is pretty much right in his grill after the reception for a physical tackle. He shows a sure tackler on tape. Now, obviously, ACC and SEC are going to be a little bit different, but that's exactly what you want. You want a corner who you can throw out there in case Xavier Brown, Zay Mincy, Jalen Mbakwe are not ready. And okay, maybe it's not a premier corner that's going to contend on every single pass, but he's not going to be a liability. He's not going to get beaten over the top consistently. He's going to keep everything in front of you. And when the tackle is there to be made, he's going to go make the tackle and or really mess up the ball carrier so that someone else can make the tackle. And so from a fit standpoint on the field, I think it makes perfect sense, and I think it's great. I think that Kalen DeBoer, I think Kane Womack and Mo Linguist and Colin Hitchler all hit, it's not a home run, but it's a nice double. It's a nice gapper double. And you can look, you keep hitting doubles in the recruiting trail, you're going to have a pretty good team, I think. So Deshaun Jones announces his commitment, and you're looking for King Mack and you're looking for Geno Vandermark to round out the transfer portal class. I think you'll see King Mack pretty much in the next 24 hours. Really, I think it's probably going to be in the next 45 minutes to an hour. But we'll see when King Mack, the Penn State safety, what he ends up doing very, very soon. All right, so that's Kalen DeBoer, Deshaun Jones, Alabama softball. What do I want to get into next? Oh, my gosh. Yesterday, I wanted to talk about this, but we didn't get to it because I was over at the Regents Tradition. Yesterday first, Alabama and Illinois announces their Alabama and Illinois announces a basketball series. Alabama is going to play up there in Chicago. Illinois is going to come down to Birmingham. It's going to be Birmingham this coming season. The Alabama-Arizona game that was supposed to be in Birmingham is pushed back by 1 year. Not that big a deal, in my opinion, but you get another high-profile, not a home and home, but almost home and home, kind of in neutral court, high-profile neutral court games against a Power 5 opponent. But on Tuesday was more interesting to me for Alabama basketball. On Tuesday, if you looked at CBS Sports or if you looked at BamaCentral.com, you could see that Alabama was invited to an event in Las Vegas, the Players Era Festival. The Players Era Festival out there in Las Vegas is going to be a one-of-a-kind event. It's going to be crazy. Look, I don't know if you watch the basketball tournament in the summer after NBA is over. Basically, it's an amateur basketball tournament that some organizers put on, and the winners get $1 million. And look, you get older players, you get college players who are not quite at the peak of their playing time. Last year, Alabama did field a team, and you saw a couple of former Alabama players representing Alabama. They lost, I think, in the first or the second round, so they didn't win the money. But it is a cool event. Yeah, it's not LeBron James and it's not Steph Curry in the event, but these guys play hard for $1 million. And you've got the Elam ending, which is a little bit complicated to explain, but it's a fun event for $1 million. And so college basketball, basically, these folks out in Las Vegas have orchestrated this event where they say, oh, we're going to steal that idea, but we're going to make it these college basketball teams. They're going to give $1 million to all 8 basketball teams participating. You got 7 teams locked in already. Alabama, Houston, Oregon, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Rutgers, and San Diego State. Who's that 8th team going to be? Woo, it's going to be interesting to see. But you get $1 million right into your NIL fund right off the bat. Now, it's not going to be straight up pay for play. The players are going to have to do some marketing events out there in Las Vegas. This is going to take place Thanksgiving week. Mom, Dad, maybe I'm not home for Thanksgiving this week. Maybe this coming year, maybe I'm out in Las Vegas for the first time in my life, and we'll see if I even make it back. But it's going to be out in Las Vegas. You're going to have concerts. You're going to have lots of events around the teams where the teams are going to be, it sounds like they're going to be accessible to the fan bases that are out there and to the people that are out there. They're going to basically orchestrate, we need these players to do these ad reads and we need these players to do these marketing events. And that's how they're going to get their $1 million. Okay, great. You get $1 million right off the bat. But it gets even better. The winner of this event is going to get paid. Now, it sounds like it's going to be another $1 million, but that's still up in the air, the exact amount. But goodness gracious, look, we all want to win the NCAA championship. You all want to win March Madness. But imagine, we're going to a week-long tournament, and if we win, we're getting $1 million. I think it's going to produce some of the best basketball that we're going to see next year. It's going to be a blast. Now, I wonder how much this multi-team event has been at play for Nate Oates and his coaching staff, for Preston Murphy and his coaching staff, as they've been hitting the transfer portal over the course of the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we hit on Cliff Amore. We hit on LeBaron Philon. Alabama got Aiden Holloway. You got Chris Youngblood. So you've hit on some pretty nice names in the transfer portal. Grant Nelson announces his return for another year. You're still up in the air about Jaron Stevenson and Mark Sears, but you've done really good work, really, really good work. If you end up getting Mark Sears back, I contend it might be one of the best rosters that have ever been assembled here in Tuscaloosa. So you've done really, really good work. How much was this tournament used as a carrot? Oh, guys, you're going to be, obviously NIL is used as a carrot, but how much was this tournament used as, Cliff Amore, you can come. We've already agreed to be in this tournament. Sorry, Georgetown, you're out. Sorry, North Carolina, you're out. We heard on Sunday that Cliff Amore took less money to come to Alabama. But what if the case is like, okay, well, you got less money up front, but because Alabama is in this multi-team event this coming up season, I wonder if that had any factor in, I can earn this money by going out and competing in the Players Era Festival. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait. And honestly, look, Preston Murphy put it out there today on his Twitter machine, put a little graphic of Alabama's number 2 recruiting class with the hashtag new blood. Honestly, I hate that term, but let's be objective. Despite how I feel about the term, that's what Alabama's kind of at right now for basketball. You make your first Final Four. You're one of 8 teams invited to this premier event. You pulled in the number 2 recruiting class in the country. You beat North Carolina for probably the best or one of the best big men in the nation in the transfer portal. No, you're not blue blood Alabama, but you're sitting there at the new blood stage. You were the number 1 seed in the tournament 2 years ago. You've won 4 SEC titles in the last 5 years. So, yeah, new blood is appropriate. And I think that, everything is just looking up and up and up for Alabama basketball. And this multi-team event is just it's exciting to me. I look, whether I'm out there in Las Vegas covering it personally, if I'm not there, I'm going to be glued to the television for all of the games, not just the Alabama games. I think the level of competition is going to be even higher with money on the line. You can say, Joe, they play for the love of the game. They play hard regardless. They give the 100% regardless. You're right. I think they do. But I think there's that extra gear if you put $1 million on the line that some of these players may not even realize that they have inside them. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. Make your point. Look, I know it's Thanksgiving week and big time for families, but maybe you want to spend your Thanksgiving on the Las Vegas Strip watching Alabama compete for $1 million. Let's keep it on the basketball train and talk about Mark Sears. Mark Sears, look, still in the NBA draft process, and they've got to go through NBA Combine in the next couple of days. I think that's on the 11th. But I want to turn to Kevin O'Connor, of The Ringer. And The Ringer does a lot of NBA work and a lot of NBA specific coverage. And Kevin O'Connor is one of the lead guys on that. He's got his latest mock draft. He put it out, today? Is that what I got? Let me roll up to my date here. Awesome, Kevin. You don't have a date on your article, buddy. Come on now. We got to do a little better than that. All right, but it came out in the last day or two on theringer.com. And the big question about Mark Sears is he going to stay in the draft? Is he going to get guaranteed money? If he's a top 40 pick, he could get guaranteed money. Obviously the first rounders get the guaranteed money. But in this mock draft, our friend Kevin O'Connor has Mark Sears coming in at 33. Is there 32 teams in the NBA or just 30? 33 to the Milwaukee Bucks. His short little capture. Sears is a smaller guard who would be surrounded by giants on the Bucks, which could be a perfect fit for him and provide a spark as an apprentice behind Damian Lillard. Can I see that? Perfect. A clutch guard who can drain shots from all over the floor while providing reliable playmaker. Pluses, a talented shot creator with pace in the pick and roll and knows how to leverage his scoring to draw the gaze of multiple defenders. A skilled passer who can spray the ball around the floor. He can make routine plays like bounce passes to rollers or accurate lobs to cutters, but he'll also use his offhand to fire fastballs to three-point shooters. These skills could be enhanced with NBA spacing. Go down to his minuses. He's limited athletically by a lack of burst off the dribble, so he'll need to develop elite footwork to become a true shot creator. He's forced a ton of shots at the rim, possibly because of his oversized role at Alabama, but he'll need to distribute more at the next level. Careless with some passes because he either doesn't see a defender or hits a player who isn't ready to receive the ball. An undersized defenders like him will always get targeted by offenses. The Jalen Brunson comparison is also relevant in this sense, and Sears is about an inch shorter and 10 pounds lighter than Jalen Brunson. So, look, at 33, you getting drafted at 33, Mark Sears to the Milwaukee Bucks? I don't know. That's not good news if you're an Alabama basketball fan hoping to see Mark Sears return to Tuscaloosa, but it's just one draft pundit. We'll see as we get closer and closer to the draft if he's going to stay in, and we'll keep watching mock drafts. But Kevin O'Connor has Mark Sears getting drafted at 33rd overall. Now, it's not guaranteed money, but you're right in that range where you can negotiate guaranteed money. And so, look, I do like the fit. I know I got a buddy who's a big Milwaukee Bucks fan, and I would like to see him happy with our friend Mark Sears. Two more things for us, and they're NIL-based right here on a Thursday. I want to talk about Spencer Danielson. You say, who? Spencer Danielson is the head coach of the Boise State Broncos. Great. Awesome. Good luck out there. Spencer Danielson goes out into some interview or into the media over the last couple of days and says that I cannot believe he said this. I cannot believe it. NIL, our freshmen are not eligible to take NIL. You have to earn it. You have to be a second-year player or more to earn NIL. And look, I know that a lot of you people hear that and you're like, yeah, that's great. Make them earn it. And of course, we've had this discussion before about what's really NIL and what's not and when the guys actually earned it. Look, if you're recruiting a five-star freshman quarterback, a five-star quarterback out of high school, he's already earned NIL because everybody, look, Nico Iamaleava, well, how much did he get paid to go to Tennessee? If Tennessee didn't pay him, somebody else would have. That's how valuable they are. They're already valuable as high schoolers. But that's not the point. We're not discussing that. What we're discussing is the fact that Spencer Danielson, I don't know if this is a team policy and he's trying to get everybody to adhere to it, but all it's going to take is one freshman that says, hey, man, I want NIL. I want to do a deal with local pizza shop down the street. I want to do a deal with local car dealership down the street. Or even maybe say you're a big-time recruit, and I want to do a deal with Nike or some huge company. Spencer Danielson, little news for you. You cannot prevent your freshman from taking NIL. That's illegal. Sorry. That is flat out illegal. And so just like the SEC rule in the spring window of, you can't transfer within conference or you'll have to sit out a year is kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod deal within the 16 teams in the conference. Look, it's illegal to say that. The NCAA has basically, in the last 6 months, has said that you can transfer to any school anytime and you'll be eligible. The SEC is kind of doing this wink, wink, nod, nod deal, and it's working for the coaches. That's great. And all 16 teams are in agreement. All 16 programs are in agreement, and that's great. But Spencer Danielson, I don't know if you realize this, but you can't – look, no, they're not employees, but they may as well be. You can't make an employee work as an indentured employee. Hey, you got to work for 12 months, and then you'll get a paycheck. What? Now, of course, you've got other ways that they're making money. The Alston money, they're making money with Pell Grants and different stipends as well. But as far as NIL goes, you can't stop your freshmen from making NIL. Sorry. I know you want to say, you got to earn it, X, Y, Z, and ABC. And Spencer Danielson was talking about, don't come here if your first conversations are NIL and your first conversations are what's my number going to be and what's my opportunity. Like, okay, you can have that approach if you want to. Boise State head coach Spencer Danielson, you can, absolutely. But see how well that works out for you on the recruiting trail. You go into little Jimmy's living room and say, hey, little Jimmy, you're a great football player. We want you at Boise State. We're going to put you on the field. We're going to, look, I think you can play as a freshman, or whatever the case may be, whatever your pitch to little Jimmy is. And then when little Jimmy says, well, what about NIL, coach? I speak pretty well. I'm a good-looking guy. Companies are going to want to use me as a face. I'm going to be a running back, a wide receiver, a quarterback. I'm going to be the face of the program. I'm going to be out there. And he says, oh, well, freshmen aren't eligible to take NIL at Boise State. Well, you know what they do? Oh, yeah, thanks for your time, coach. Thanks for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the pie that mother made. We're going to go to Wyoming or whatever schools that are out there recruiting you. Colorado State. You're going to go to other schools. This is not going to work for you, one, on the recruiting trail, but two, if you were able to pull it off, it's frankly illegal to keep these kids from making the NIL. So good luck with that, Spencer Danielson. We'll see how Boise State fares on the recruiting trail in the future with that kind of messaging going out there. The second thing for NIL that I want to talk about is Brian Kelly. You guys were probably on social media and you saw Brian Kelly talking to one of the local television stations down there in Baton Rouge. And basically they asked him, okay, how's the spring transfer portal window going for you? And Brian Kelly pretty openly said, not well. Why not? You're LSU, not well. And essentially, more or less, Brian Kelly says, well, we have a need at defensive line. They got Mason Smith drafted. They got a couple guys drafted along the defensive line this year. And they got our friend Bo Davis down there as a defensive line coach. Am I right? Or did I just make that up? Bo Davis, he's down there at Texas, down there at LSU, right? Yeah, LSU. And they got two defensive linemen, LSU draft picks. I know one was Mason Smith, but I think there was a second one that was drafted as well. Let's see. Yeah. Jaden Daniels. Here we go. Mekhi Wingo, and then Jaquelin Roy. Here we go. Yeah, Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo were the two defensive linemen that were drafted this year. Mason Smith in the second round and Mekhi Wingo in the sixth round. All right, so Brian Kelly, we got a pretty big hole at defensive line. But he basically says we're not going to go out there and buy players. And on the surface, great, good for you, Brian Kelly. No, we're not going to buy players. Well, look, that's the way of the world right now. You either need to pony up or get left behind. Pony up or develop what's on your roster and prevent them from going into the transfer portal. Kirby Smart yesterday saying, we did fine in the transfer portal because we retain our roster. Okay, Brian Kelly, retain your roster and develop your roster if you don't want to go buy players. But I think that Brian Kelly's comments were overblown. I think that Brian Kelly's comments, a lot of people took that to mean, you're not at Notre Dame anymore. You can buy players. You can afford it. You don't have the same academic restrictions. And I do think that LSU's NIL packages are fairly good. I think they're competitive along with the rest of the SEC. But I think Brian Kelly didn't really communicate his point very well. Because I think they would buy players if the player was the right player. Look, you're not turning down any monstrous defensive linemen. But what you've seen in the transfer portal in the last 3 weeks or so is that defensive lineman is at a premium. Lots of programs want defensive linemen. And so let's say I'm an average talk show host, but talk show hosts are at a premium at radio stations or podcast places or whatever. That's going to make my value inflated. And so let's say you're a television station, radio station, podcast place, and you're like, okay, we need a talk show host, but we don't want to overpay. Why would that's what LSU's doing right now. That's what Brian Kelly's what he should have, how he should have communicated it. Because I think that LSU will and would pay for the right defensive lineman, but you've heard numbers like $800,000, $900,000, 1.2, 1.4. You've heard in that range for that's what it takes to get a defensive lineman. All right, you're at a position of premium. That's what it's going to take. Why would you pay 1.2, 1.4, 900,000? Why would you pay these premiums for players that you don't see, that you You don't think they're worth it. You don't think that they're going to recoup. You're not going to recoup the value on these players. Yeah, they might get thrown out there as a rotational defensive lineman, but if I'm spending $1.2 million, your ass better be on the field for all 3 downs every single time. And you better be, oh my gosh, you better be Glenn Dorsey out there from an LSU perspective. I don't think that really there's a Glenn Dorsey in the transfer portal. I don't think there's a Mason Smith in the transfer portal. They're second-round pick. And so if there were, I'm sure that Brian Kelly and his LSU staff would say, all right, yeah, well, let's go get us a guy like Mason Smith's caliber, a second-round pick who's going to be an impactful player. Now, obviously, Mason Smith dealt with some injuries this year, and that's just bad luck. But I think that really what Brian Kelly was trying to get at was we're just not going to overpay for players that we don't think are going to be impactful. Look, I think that if I were in a locker room and I knew that a transfer came in, oh, Billy, you're our new defensive lineman. We paid you $1.2 million to be here. And Billy maybe it wasn't that good or wasn't a fit or didn't earn a starting job. I think that would create issues in the locker room. Hey, Coach Kelly, I'm better than Billy. Come on. Where's my raise? Where's my raise? Where's my value? Like, you paid Billy $1.2 million to sit on the bench or to be a rotational defensive lineman. Where's my money? And so it's a layer of complication. If you overpay for these players, you better put them out there on the field. And then if they're not really what they're billed to be, then what happens to, are you going to go back into the portal the next year and spend another $1.2 million on an average defensive lineman? Or are you going to create a ripple effect in your locker room where, everybody's upset that transfer portal player B got in here and didn't really impact the team very much, but got paid a lot of money? I think that it creates a lot of complications. So Brian Kelly, I think that he wasn't very clear. 3 days ago about not paying for defensive linemen. I think LSU will pay for a defensive lineman for the right defensive lineman. I just think that his overarching point was really, these guys aren't really worth what they're being shopped for. And if they're not worth what they're being shopped for, don't you want your coach not to spend that money? Don't you want your coach to save that money for maybe a 5-star high school senior? I would. Pay it for, pay the freshman coming in because you think he might be worth it down the line. Develop him, get him in, get his loyalty, rather than shopping the transfer portal for a player that may not be the perfect fit for your program. Last thing for us, and it's very, very minor, it's the NCAA. The NCAA announced today, according to our friend Nicole Arbach. Let me find her tweet. Nicole. I can't spell. There you go. Arbach. Nicole Arbach, she tweeted, how many hours ago? The NCAA. Basically, they're allowing unlimited official visits. Unlimited official visits for college football and basketball. And so I think that that's a great thing because, look, if a player wants to come to your school for an official visit and you think that player is worth it, this is men's and women's basketball. So let's use Darian Reed for an example. Darian Reed, one of Alabama's freshmen coming in. If Darian Reed said, hey, man, I want to come on an official visit in March and I want to come on an official visit in June. I just like the school. I want to check things out. Like, you should be able to do that. If you can afford it as a school, you should be able to do that. And so, yes, it will probably create more haves and have-nots, but that's where we are in college sports. Welcome to America, the haves and have-nots, and that's in college sports is exactly a microcosm of that. So the NCAA lifting restrictions on official visits. You can come do an official visit for football, for men's basketball and women's basketball for as many times as you'd like. I think that's a good move on the NCAA's part. I know a lot of times on the program we sit here and slam the NCAA, but when they have a good move, you got to give them a little credit. I think that's a good move. We're going to get out of here for the day. We're going to come back tomorrow to talk about Alabama baseball against LSU. It's going to be a huge series right here in Tuscaloosa. If you got time to be here, you need to come down to Sewell Thomas Stadium and watch Alabama baseball this weekend. It's their final home series. They got LSU at home this weekend, Auburn on the road next weekend. That'll wrap up your baseball season. The boys, they need to go 4 of 6, 4 of these next 6, 5 of these next 6 if they want to get back into the mix for hosting a regional themselves. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow, and we'll talk about whatever else is on the table. Maybe King Mac will have committed by the time we have a show tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.